In the previous how-to videos, I have set up an account for the church, our demo church here. I have imported all the people I need, and you'll see that some of these people have already accepted the welcome email and have become a user. Remember that you can only be a team manager if you're already a user, so make sure that the people who are going to be team managers need to become users. I've set up my teams, and I've actually set up 6 teams now. I've set up an AV team, the band, the creche, security, welcoming and the worship leader team. Each of these teams has got people allocated to it. If it's a single role team, that's fine. If it's a multi-role team, then I've allocated the roles to the people in the team. So once I've done all this, the next thing now is to actually create an event. Because what we do is we put teams into the event, and then the rota is generated automatically. So let's go to events, and let's add a new event, and this new event is going to be called Sunday morning. So it's a Sunday morning service. This is going to be a recurring event. In other words, it'll happen at a regular interval, in this case weekly. So we'll leave that ticked. I'll talk about non-recurring events later in the video. The time of the event, well, it's running from 11 till 12. So I'll just go in here and say from 11, and it automatically adds on an hour, but obviously you can change the stop time as well. The repeat pattern, it's because it's a weekly service, we say it's weekly, and we say what day is on, so it's on the Sunday. So this is all part of setting up what's called a template for an event. And the template contains the name of the event and various other information like the recurring, the time of the event, and so on. The template will also hold what teams are in that event and how many people are required in each role or each team. Let's move ahead now and do that. I've created this event. It tells me that it's created for 4 weeks ahead, because that's how I've set it up in the organisational settings, and it tells me it's a recurring event every Sunday. So what I need to do now is add my teams into this event. So I go to Add Team, and the first team is the AV team. Our normal AV team is somebody in the PC, somebody in recording, and somebody in sound desk, so that's fine. I'll just leave that the way it is. The next team I want to add is the band. And this is the band setup. We have one person in each role here, so we just leave that as well. Next team we're going to add is the creche. Now the default for the creche is 1 helper and 1 leader, but in actual fact we normally have 2 helpers in the creche. So I'm going to increase that by 2, but because I've changed this, I need to tell it to recreate the rota. And this is an important point, that if you make any changes to this, then you have to click on recreate, and that will recreate the rota with 2 people in the helper role. Okay, next team will be security. And we normally have 3 people in security, so I'll increase that to 3. And again, I must remember to click recreate the rota, because I don't just want 1 person on security. Next team, the welcoming team. We have 2 people in the welcoming team, so I'd go there and do 2 and recreate it. Now bear in mind, you only need to do this once to set up the event. Add the final team, which is the worship leader, and we just have 1 worship leader. Remember, if we don't need somebody in a team, so for instance in the band, in the morning service, let's say we didn't want electric guitar, we could just set that to 0, and that means that no one will be rotated in for electric guitar. However, I do want somebody in electric guitar, so I'll just leave that the way it is, and because I haven't actually changed the figures overall, I don't need to recreate the rota. So that's the template completed for the Sunday morning service. We've got all our teams added, we've set the number of people we want in each team. If we changed any of this, we've recreated the rota. Let's now go and look at the rota that's been generated. Here we can see the rota for this Sunday coming and the next 3 Sundays ahead, because that's how I've set it up. I want 4 weeks at a time. The rota shows each of the teams that we put into the template, and it puts in the number of people. So for instance, there's 2 helpers in the creche and 1 leader, there are 3 people on security, and so on. You'll notice there's an orange triangle beside J Rose, because J Rose is in 2 rotas on the same day. That's what we call a conflict. In the next video, I'm going to talk about how to edit the rota and how to resolve conflicts. Let's look now at how we would create a non-recurring event. So the non-recurring event I'm going to create is a coffee morning. These are only run occasionally and there's no particular pattern to when they're on. I'm going to uncheck the recurring box to make it a non-recurring event. So we put in the date of when the first coffee morning we're going to be having is, and we're going to have one on the last Saturday of the month, which is the 31st, and the coffee morning runs from 10 till 12. So I'm going to add now that template into the system, and we get exactly the same as before, but because we've got a non-recurring event, we only see one instance of it here, unlike the recurring events where it generates 4 weeks at a time. So we do the same as we did before, we add our teams. So what we need here is we need a security team to keep an eye on the car park, and we want 3 people again on security. Remember, if we change anything here, we need to recreate the rota. Obviously as well, we need our tea and coffee team. And since it's a coffee morning, there's going to be quite a few people needed, so I'm going to put 5 people onto the tea and coffee rota. Recreate the rota. And finally, we want somebody on the door welcoming people in. I will actually have 2 people on the welcoming team again, and we'll recreate that rota. So this is what we need then for our coffee morning: a security, our tea and coffee team, and a welcoming team. If we now go and look at the rota, and we go down to the 31st, there is the coffee morning appearing. So these are the people in security, people in tea and coffee, and the people in the welcoming. Now again, this rota can be edited, and if you look at the rota video, you'll see how to go about editing a rota. Supposing we decide we're wanting to have another coffee morning on the first Saturday of December, we can go in to our events, we can go to our coffee morning event, and we can add an instance of it. So these are non-recurring, so they don't have a pattern of recurring, but we can add an instance. So we're going to add another coffee morning on the first Saturday of December. It's at the same time, so we can just leave that and we can add that. So we've now got 2 instances of our non-recurring event. We've got the coffee morning in October and the coffee morning in December. So that's how you deal with a non-recurring event. Very similar to the recurring events, but you can add instances of it once you've set up the template. Okay, the next video then will be on rotas, dealing with rotas, how to view them, how to edit them, how to change them, and how to deal with conflicts in rotas.